Hello and welcome back to the Yu Yu Hakusho Let's Play. We are now entering the semi-finals, wherein Yusuke, our protagonist here, will become Sir Not Appearing in this round, because he is currently, well, you shall see here that Genkai, his master, who is also the masked fighter, if you saw in a couple previous fights, she hid her identity for special reasons. Anyway. But she is passing on this gigantic ball of energy that's basically all of the spirit energy and techniques that she's accumulated over the years. Don't know exactly how that works, but she's taking out of her body and giving it to him. If you want to know what this is like, the game does not portray it very well. It really wouldn't have been able to. But, I think more people have seen Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood or read the manga than have watched Yu Yu Hakusho. So in case you are not aware of the goings-ons here, basically, if you remember those scenes wherein Father would be implanting, you know, his blood or his whatever that is, his sins into people to try and see if they can accept it and become the new deadly sin, and it tore their body apart, and okay, that's what happens here. That's that exact same kind of scene with the coughing up blood, the ripping off skin, the, you know, kind of dying and being reborn thing. That's what happens to Yusuke. And so, that's a really difficult thing to portray in this game, so what they did was they just had a button mashing thing, where as you can see, I have to hold out till the timer runs out by trying to replenish my health while she shoots me. It's really kind of lame, but the series is pretty awesome. It's, not just a short scene of him doing that and going, oh, I'm fine. It's all throughout the semifinals. They occasionally cut back. I think it's about half of the semifinal round. They cut back to Yusuke and he's like, "Wah!" Like, you know, my hats, they say Dragon Ball Z, you know, requires you to do a lot of screaming, but, my hat's off to, Justin Cook for screaming, for that long, for that many episodes as Yusuke. It's pretty extreme. And it's funnier because, well, I'll bring it up when it pops up here in a minute. But these are the next team we have to fight. I don't remember what the name of the team is. It's kind of long and elaborate. But there is a theme here, just like there was with the Elemental Ninjas. The theme sort of here is Japanese legends. They aren't all legends that I'm familiar with, but I think they're pretty much all based on ancient Japanese folk tales. And this thing, Makintaro here, this thing with the big blade for a hand, I don't know, he just sort of looks like an Oni to me, or some kind of ogre, but he was probably based on something. If he wasn't, then, you know, whatever. But he's the most, I guess, not obvious fable. So I don't know if he was based on anything or if he's just a ogre with an axe for a hand. But you have to fight him here as Hiei, and in the show itself, this is a non-fight. This is a, Hiei is finally happy to be back in commission and just says, I'll fight him, I so want to fight him. Even though, basically, they have dice, and, there's a random space, or choose space, and he said, anytime you get one of those, that's me. He said, anytime you get one for Yusuke, or for the masked fighter, since they're not currently present, that's me too. So Hiei wanted all the fights. And so, this in the show is basically Makintaro talking a lot of smack, coming up, trying to kill Hiei, and Hiei just stabs him through the face. And it's very simple, but it was basically Hiei saying, oh, I'm so glad to be back in the game. Here, to, I don't know, give it a gimmick, they make it so you can't use your spirit attacks because you are quote-unquote saving them for later or some nonsense. So I had to use punches and the sword, but as you may have noticed, Hiei is perfectly fine without having to use spirits attacks. I like playing as him. It's, you know, you just kind of interchange between the sword and the fists. The problem with interchanging between the sword and the fists is it's kind of, in the game, it's kind of, what's the word? Effortless, I guess. You don't really notice when you're taking out the sword. There is a button to take out the sword and to put it back, but sometimes there are some combos where he would take out the sword in the middle of it, and then you don't really realize that it's out, you know what I mean? So the reason I bring this up is because in this next fight, guess what you can't use? Your sword. This says TA and Kuromomontaro. Okay. So, listen to this guy's voice here. Okay, so that's Justin Cook, by the way, playing Kuromomontaro, which means Dark Momotaro. Momotaro is a legend. I will try to explain in a minute from what little I remember. And, They cut the part right after he cuts his arm there. There's a scene where he's like, "Yeah, baby, it hurts so good," or something like that, and he just like slurps the blood off the blade and off his arm. I think that was a little too graphic for the game. It really wasn't necessary, but anyway, Justin Cook, who plays Yusuke, is also playing this Kuro Momotaro guy. So not only is he doing all those scenes where Yusuke is screaming, dying, just really, you have to watch the show. It's some pretty gross sounds to listen to. He's doing all that, and he's also playing this random guy, who also does a lot of yelling and growling and stuff like that. So, I don't know how raw his throat was by the end of the day, but he was pulling double duty here, so hats off to Justin Cook. Kuro Momotaro here is based on the legend of Momotaro, which is the little peach boy, and it's about this, if you kind of think of Moses, it's this little boy who floats down the river in a peach, like a giant peach, and this elderly couple gets him out of the peach and raises him, and he's very small. He's sort of like a Tom Thumb kind of guy, but he isn't always, and then later in the story he shapeshifts or something like that. I don't know. See, that's where my knowledge of Japanese legends drops off. I'm very rusty. I'm sure I could look it up, but I didn't really have the time. So what this guy does, his name is Kuro Momotaro, which means Black Momotaro. Black Peach Boy. I don't know. He's still got peach emblems on him. It's not very manly. So what you do in this fight is, and this is also very true to the show, as you can see, he cut his arm open with the sword. And then he cracked open this sphere, which turned him into an ape man thing. And the whole reason for that, okay, he was about to transform. I'm sorry, I apologize in advance. You will never see his other forms in this fight. Maybe I will do a special after I finish the show where I show off all the characters' moves that, like, you didn't get to see any Jin's cool moves either. I apologize. But, what he does is, once he transforms into this upper form, whatever weapon he had used on himself previously, his new form will be impervious to it. So now he can't use his sword at all. This was a bigger deal in the show because he also couldn't use the Dragon of the Darkness Flame or anything like that. So, there is a way that Hiei beats him. It's kind of complicated. I'm sure people in the comments will give a detailed description. I've learned that people in the comments are very picky, but no, that's not exactly how it happened in Yu Yu Hakusho. I'm like, it's pretty accurate. Leave me alone, guys. Yeah, I can use my sword, technically. Ooh, that killed him dead. So, I can use my sword, technically, but it won't do any damage against him. Again, this is a problem, because while I can use my spirit moves, there aren't many... I did... That one that was right there is called Fist of the Mortal Flame, which he kind of uses to defeat Kuro Momotaro in the show. But it's really inaccurate, so I was like, I'd prefer to just punch. But when I punch, if I pull off a really complicated combo, he'd pull out his sword. And if his sword is out, he's going to use that sword all the time without me noticing that's out. So if I take the time to put it back, in that time, Kuro Momotaro will run up and beat the shit out of me. So it is tricky. Although, that's funny that actually worked. I was like, I'm just going to throw a dragon on him and see. He didn't block it. Wow, he's dumb. Okay, so I noticed, I mentioned that he doesn't show off his this. He tries, but I stop him. I'm not nice. To transform into his future forms. Which are a phoenix, which is very silly looking. I really wish he had gotten at least the phoenix. And again, once he does that, it becomes impervious to whatever attacks were previously used, which was another big plot point in the show, where it's like, oh no, how's he gonna get out of this one? He has another one of those? So the phoenix is a big purple-looking thing with a bright orange hair. And it's another thing where, again, I don't know if Justin Cook's voice just broke after that, because the phoenix form talks like this! He talks like this all the time! And it's just, ooh. And then after that, he finds some kind of new way to attack the Phoenix, something that will actually hurt him, some attack he isn't yet impervious to. And then Kuro Momotaro pulls out another one, and he turns into a wolf man. That's his last one, is this wolf form. And, yeah, by that time, they're all like, Hiei's gonna have to use the Dragon of the Darkness Flame. He doesn't end up having to do that. He does something else. Again, people will explain it in detail, I'm sure, because I forgot exactly what sequence of attacks he uses. Now, this was a close match. You can see I almost died. Thank goodness I didn't. But the whole problem with this match, the reason it took me a couple tries is, as you can tell, sometimes if you're punching and punching and punching, you pull out the sword, and then you start using the sword, and you're wasting moves because it's not going to affect him. And in that time, you're like, oh, I got to put my sword back. And in the minute you try to back up, take time to put your sword back, he attacks you. So, but that wasn't that bad. Suzuka, who we'll meet later, really knocked the puss out of me. So, at this point, all of the Yusuke screaming scenes are, in fact, over. He's kind of passed out right now, or no, you know what? It's not. Genkai leaves him before he's done absorbing the thing, so he's actually writhing in pain still for a few more episodes. He cut back. Meanwhile, Yusuke, for a few more episodes. Genkai just leaves him there. But she comes back and fights this guy, Shishi Wakamaru, which is based on a yokai, which are demons. Oh, I don't remember. It's like a howling. It's okay. You know what? Pixies from Celtic tradition. Okay, kind of think of a pixie, and that's kind of what Shishi is based on. These little trickster things. And the reason Shishi is a funny character is, as you can tell, he's quite an attractive demon. He's sort of a pretty boy face thing going on, and the fun thing about this match is all throughout it, people are like yelling at Genkai, you know, old hag, because this basically her people can tell that she's weaker now. She's lost that spirit orb, and they know that there's a feeble old woman inside of those bandages, even if they can't see her yet. They're demons, they can sense it. And so they're jeering at her, compared to Shishi, who is very young, very attractive guy. And it's particularly funny because there are some female demons in the crowd. You only see them in the scene. I like how you can never see them in the crowd up till this moment. And they're all like, you know, we love you, Shishi, oh my god! Like he's an idol. It's very, very amusing. Alright, this match goes quickly, so I'm gonna go ahead and say what I'm doing here. In order to beat him, well, you can just kind of beat on him, but your attacks aren't very effective, so what you have to do is use a technique, as you saw there, called Spirit Reflection Blast, which is that tiny little orb that I summoned there. And they enable you to use it here, and what it does, and I just shot him dead, but technically, he has this sword that can summon these big, awful skulls from hell that rips people's heads off. And so he does that, and you reflect those back at him, as you saw in the first round. Not so much the second, where I just shot him. But now we're going to show it again here. So the nice karmic flip to all this is by now Shishi has shown his true form. He's got little sharp horns and nasty teeth, and he's very ugly looking. He's not the pretty boy we kind of assumed he was. And Genkai here... Oh, this is the only time we see Koenma in this game, I think. Koenma is an important character in the show, but obviously he's not a fighter. He's sort of a diplomat character. He's a prince. So, we only see him like once in the game. He's important in the show, I promise. Anyway, so, as we can see here, Genkai, using some of her ancient techniques, sort of restores her to her former young-looking self, which is, they didn't come out of nowhere. They built that up over time, that's something that happens. And so she blasts Shishi, she blasts all the ugly off him, and, you know, shows who the tougher one is between the two. It was sort of a, I don't know, appearances, commentary that wasn't really over the top and in your face. It was just like, oh, you know, did you notice that? You know, he kind of got more ugly. It was funny. And every time you see Shishi after this, because she doesn't kill him, he survives, he goes back to his natural form, which is what you saw there with the horns and the teeth, only it's really tiny and really nasty and impish. Oh, Suzuka. So this is a long battle. I had so much trouble with this, guys. I actually cut out some footage here, because, okay, part of it is that this match is hard, and also part of it is I don't know what it is about this match that my computer had trouble. I use my computer to record. I play on my PS2. It had trouble processing the frame rate of this match for some reason. I don't really know why, so it kept freezing up and I couldn't actually see what I was doing. So I had to redo the match a couple times. But I got to hate this clown. I really got to hate this clown. And so while we are fighting him, because I know it's a bit of a long match, I will talk about what we skipped here. There is actually a match that Kurama fights that they cut completely, I guess because it was kind of hard to work around. But there is a legend, you may have heard of it in Cowboy Bebop, where Jet mentions it in passing, the legend of the Tamate Bako, this giant, well, the Tamate Bako is a box, but it's this guy who gets to go on a magical journey on the back of this turtle, and it takes him to this fantasy land where, you know, he has like hundreds of years of wonderful food and women and blah blah blah, and then he comes back and to the real world and they give him a box and they say don't open the box. And the box is the Tamate Bako, and if he opens the box, it turns him into an old man, because he gets back all the years that he spent in that wonderful place. Kind of a neat little fable, but the reason it plays into Yu Yu Hakusho is the match that they skip here is a match with this guy who has a box like that. He claims to be that character. They changed it around in the dub, so that it was like something about him having to fight for his alien grandmother or something like that. And, but that wasn't in the Japanese. He just says that he's this legendary character, and people would identify with that. They changed it in the dub because we don't